how to use it and in terms of influencing the character?
Well, just to start, I wanted to say thank you guys for watching the movie and for staying for Q&A after this. I feel like this has been an epic double feature, so thank you. The music was the kind of the inspiration for the film, because I had actually been working on a documentary that Sarah was making and saw her performing live. And then right after she performed, which was already magical, this Balkan brass band got up and like stood in the center of a room, and everybody in the audience like just knew what to do. Like, it was a lot of people from this camp, even though this event was in New York, and they all just like stood up, held hands, and started dancing. And like, you know, it was like I was suddenly in, you know, a village in the Ukraine, and I was like, what? You know, like in whatever, like 1820 or something. It felt, and it was so exciting and surprising. And I was filming, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know. Anyway, and so through that event and the like passion that was sparked, I ended up getting to spend that summer filming a little short documentary about this camp, sort of like through, you know, asking a lot of people how I could be closer to that.
Where exactly is the camp?
There's two. There's one on the West Coast and one on the East Coast, and the one on the West Coast is in Mendocino, California, so it's in the Mendocino woodlands. Anyway, and Sarah was at that camp while I was filming this little documentary, and I think we both just felt that there was this like haunting presence in the wilderness, and we talked a lot that summer about like making something with a lot of hair, and you know, in it, and like creepy woman walking in the woods, and then also you know, it is magical. Like, you're in that space, and there's no electricity. You're there in a world of just, you know, you walk through the woods and you just hear this really ancient music like wafting through the trees. So it does feel like you're in another world, and it really felt like it was asking for something with this sort of mood and tone underneath it. Like, my documentary was very sweet and like fun because it's a great community, but I was like, we got to make something terrifying. But anyway, but yes, and the music was a deep collaboration, I would say. Yeah. Do you want to speak about that?
Sure. I mean, I don't know exactly who else you would have cast to do this. So I'm curious for you, after all these Q&As, I don't really feel like I have an answer for this, which is, how did the story and then the collaboration with a person in general or with me kind of grow from seed to final product?
Well, I never imagined this movie with anyone but you. I mean, I think if you had said no, I just think I wouldn't have made it. You know, I don't think, because you knew that community and you sang that music, and I had entered it through your world. So, I mean, I'd like, you know, it had to be somebody who knew Balkan music deeply, and somebody who was not afraid to be like performative, you know, and Sarah has a performance art background too, so.
It was interesting because I admire in you that you were able to believe in me that I could actually act in something, you know. So it's interesting.
I think you did a great
new
job.
Experience.
Well, speaking of collaboration, so it's noted in the credits that obviously a lot of this was improvised, and so there's obviously different ways of doing improvisation. Some begins before filming and can do in terms of character development, and then some can be on set. So how much of it was developed prior to actual shooting? How much of it was actually done on set or in the woods as filming was being done?
How much of the story or the dialogue?
A combination of character and dialogue.
Okay. Well, I'll start, and then you can probably have a lot to say too. The story we wrote was like a 5-page treatment, or 10 pages, and it's actually funny because I felt like we were changing it a lot, but actually the film is pretty true to what I had written going in, and that was a way that I had worked with Joe Swanberg, because I acted in a few of his films, and he improvises and just has a treatment. Usually it's like 1 page, his films. So this was like advanced. It was like 10 pages. And actually we all went into it thinking it was going to be a short, thinking it would be 35 minutes. But coming from a documentary background, way overshot. We spent, we were shooting like 8 hours a day. So if not like a lot more. So we had way too much footage. And then the pace of the film felt like it wanted to have that length. So, but then a lot was built from these guys, like the dialogue obviously was all improvised, even though sometimes, like, since I knew them personally, I could be like, oh, tell this story, or like, tell this story, you know, or like maybe be specific about that. And then but the story, yeah, Sarah, it was kind of a deep collaboration, especially on the ending, with how that came about. And also Sarah found the dragon song. Do you want to speak about, I don't know.
Sure. I have a question for you too. It's funny. This is a particular Q&A where I have questions for you. So when you say the 10-page treatment, can you maybe give an example of what may have been written in that treatment? Like, are they themes? Is it like jealousy and women?
Remember.
I don't remember the treatment. No.
Yeah, it was like find it, like the dress. Finding the dress, was a thing in the treatment, and I don't know. I had forgotten that until I re-looked at it like a year ago, and I was like, oh, the dress was it was conscious, like this kind of like getting these ritual objects for this sort of demon ending, demon spirit, angel, whatever it is that's going on at the end. The like tensions with Isolde, sort of like peppered throughout, and then the way that you meet that Charlie's character Steph is introduced, that kind of thing. So it's more plot, I would say, but
I'm just thinking. So there was these themes put in place, and then Josephine would, when you'd start to note a tension that was happening, then maybe you'd take either me or Isolde aside, or Charlie, and give us a message that the other person didn't have yet, so that they could infuse newness into the scene and the other one could respond. So I think the dialogue was improvised, but all prompted by maybe a beat point that you wanted to address in any of the scenes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's nice, I don't know. There was also a magic in, this is my first feature film. It's funny when you watch your first feature, you're like, oh God, okay, it's all right. It's like watching yourself naked or something. And I think the nice part about that, and something that I think was a blessing, and something that I don't even know if I could do it again if I wanted to, was that you have to give in to your actors. So like, I had to just be like, I don't know where this scene's gonna go, and then plop them in there, and then just keep rolling and rolling and rolling. And what's nice about working with talented, like smart people, Charlie comes from an acting background, Isolde is a friend, but is that they would also sometimes just find the thing in the scene to like hold on to or to advance, and that was really exciting. And then in editing, you could kind of write from there. It's like you're sitting there as an actor, and you're like, I don't know what to do. I guess it'll be interesting, and that, in a weird way, when I worked on Joe's films, it was a similar like technique where he didn't speak hardly at all, and I was like, am I doing anything right? I don't know, but then you just grip onto your own instincts, and that's actually better than anything a director can say to you often, in terms of like telling a story where a character is close to the people that are.
That's for something for sure I learned on this set, because I didn't feel like I had any placement really, and I didn't know what to do and where I was and if I was doing a good job acting. So the only thing I could really do was just be an extreme version of myself in whatever context you put me in, just sort of try to attach to whatever the rawest part of that emotion was and kind of just go along for the ride. I remember some of the scenes, like the wood scene, I think that's so effective that we shot that, which I didn't, that wasn't originally in the footage. We shot that, I guess, last summer. And it definitely heightens the Isolde and I tension, and it's a really freaky little scene. I like it.
How challenging was the editing, knowing that you were doing improvisation and a lot of multiple takes, probably trying to get the right balance?
The editing was a really long time. I'm like so jealous of people who can just edit, like, or make a normal movie that isn't like, oh, there's dreamy things. I mean, I think one of the things that was hard, so we premiered the film at Maryland Film Festival like over a year ago, and it was, and I think at that time, it felt like, I was just, what am I trying to say? Like, I was like, I just still wasn't satisfied with the film. And so I was like, I just want it to be, like this, and it's kind of like this. And then, but it's interesting now, like, I mean, I would say like even a month ago, I wasn't like great, it's done. You know, I always want to like go back and change everything. And that's the danger of being your own editor is that, you know, if you're not paying somebody else to edit for you, then you never run out of time and money. So it's just your own time and money that you're like sweating and late into the night to try to hope it works. Anyway, actually this is the first viewing where I was like, oh, I think the movie's done. So thank you guys for being here for that very satisfying feeling. Like, I don't think I could change it even if I wanted to, because I think I would just probably, you know, whatever, mess it up. So, and it was a long process. And I think also something that I still like struggle with is that there's just a lot of layers of what's going on. There's like a bit of a plot layer of like, you know, these two girls have this jealousy about this boy. And then there's another plot layer, which is like, this one girl might be a little bit loopy. And then there's another plot layer, which is like, is there a spirit in the forest? You know, and it was like having, you know, trying to pepper that in a way through the film so that you kind of had a sense of anticipation of all three was hard. I mean, I don't know that I nailed it. Like I said, I hope to continue making films and getting better at whatever weird thing I'm trying to do, but yeah.
All right, so I'd like to open it up right now for questions from you guys. Yes.
This question sort of follows on what Josephine said about, I guess, the fact that you didn't feel that it was done at certain points. I happened to notice that you were taking notes during the showing. So I guess my question is, I mean, were you taking notes of things that you would change? Or?
No, I think I wrote down, oh my God, it's done.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Thank God, because we're supposed to deliver the films tomorrow. And I was like, and yesterday I was like, God, I never cut out that shot I wanted to cut out, and the movie's gonna suck if I don't get rid of that one shot. And then I watched it and I really liked that shot. So I'm very happy that.
Which shot was it?
It's this was something that was like, so the second, the kind of revision of the film that I did like 8 months or 6 months ago, I don't know. Anyway, time doesn't even exist, so I don't know why we're talking about it. But the part, when it's like kind of early in the film and you and Isolde meet, there's like a mixer kind of gathering outdoors. Right after Sarah's sitting there, and it's a big wide shot of her, and she kind of hears something in the reeds. Yeah. And then there's these like two flash frames where it's like a little floaty thing and then a face, and then it cuts into this next scene where Isolde's walking and then they have a conversation. Yeah, and there's a bell sound. And when I saw it in Berlin, which was the first time I'd seen it on a big screen, I was like, oh God, it's too much. Like, it's so over the top. I hate it. And then this time I was like, oh, I really like it, because I feel like maybe it signals to the audience that something else is going to be happening in the film besides this sort of hyper-realistic, natural kind of space, which hopefully is also signaled by the beginning anyway. But you know, that's the weird thing. It's like I could probably watch it 3 times with 3 different audiences and feel totally differently. Like, thank God you guys were the ones sitting here, because if it had been different people, I might be like, oh my God, I'm re-editing the whole movie in the next 24 hours. So, I mean, I think that's sort of, I don't know if every filmmaker feels like that, but I feel like, especially with a movie that's this weird, maybe you always feel like that. I also was writing down ideas for a music video that Sarah and I are gonna collaborate on. Her song Genish Me Mamo, which is now in the trailer for this film, is all about dragons, and it's also the song that she's singing in the film, like the kind of song that infects her consciousness. So we're gonna make a music video for that, which I'm really excited about, and we're gonna put a bunch of reptiles in a room. Anyway, and so I was having ideas about how actually my idea, if anyone knows a herpetologist, it would be really helpful. Do you know one? No. Oh, I thought that there was a... Oh, great. Okay. That's awesome, because I was like, wouldn't it be cool if there were like turtles on the screen like moving? It was kind of like an idea of floating through evolutionary history, and then if there were turtles and they were really big compared to the people, but then also if you just saw somebody like doing their normal thing, like a guy studying turtles and like, you know, whatever, like feeding them or checking their stomachs. I don't know what you do with a turtle really, but and then after, if then like, you know, like, so it just seems like it's a science video, but there's this weird music, and then like the 3 girls like come up from behind him, like into his lab, And you can tell me if this is the good idea.
The first I'm hearing of this, I
Right,
would just like to point out.
out. And then if
My band is going to be like,
and then they all like emerge from into the lab, and then they're singing this haunting video while the guy's like working on the turtle. And then and so you're like, whoa, that's weird. Why are they in the lab? Why are these women in Bulgarian traditional costumes standing in this lab? And then but then later in the video, like the scientist who seemed very serious the whole time, like has his own like dance sequence where he's just like, wow, like being all wacky and liquid like you guys.
and then we join him in
Yeah.
his dance sequence.
That would be anyway, you can tell me
And
later.
it becomes comical and groovy by the end.
It's not really a comical song, so I'm not sure.
I know,
if
I'm
it's
like,
gonna
how is that
work.
going to...
But
Very
That
interesting.
was my idea.
I'm excited to talk about it.
Yes.
This is my third time watching it, and it's such a rich movie. I still see like new things, every time. So I want to talk about your cinematographer, Ashley Connor. Like, how did you? Because the cinematography is something I've never seen. I mean, I've seen a lot of movies. I've never seen something quite, look quite like this.
So you're interested in
I'm just wondering
overall
how you-
cinematography,
yeah.
or
So yeah, how you hooked up with her and how did you work with her throughout and so on.
By the way, Chris wrote a really beautiful review of this movie and writes in general. Chris Bourne, right? Bourne. If you want to read his articles, he writes for Twitch and probably other places as well. And anyway, and the article he did about butter is awesome. Okay, so cinematography. Ashley, it's funny, like every time I think every time I see the film, I have a little more objectivity, and you really have no objectivity, I think, when you're editing a film that you directed. And so for a long time, I didn't see, for instance, that a lot of the film is out of focus. Like now I'm like, oh my God, there's no shots that you can actually, you spend the first half of the movie being like, when are they gonna come into, oh God, yes, they're in focus. Oh shit, she just cut, and I just didn't see that when I was editing. It just felt like there was like a gooiness that I liked about it so I didn't even know that a lot of the work was out of focus until later on. And then Ashley and I had worked together on a short film, Me the Terrible, about a child pirate who tries to conquer New York City. It's online if anyone's curious to watch. And that was shot on film, and I really loved working with her. And it was kind of the first time I really learned what it means to trust your cinematographer, because on film, it was like an old, enormous film camera, and there's no monitor, so I couldn't see what she was shooting. So I just had to be like, trust that, we had talked through things enough that she would make decisions that were exciting and we would be on the same page. And then you can't even see, I couldn't afford dailies, so I didn't see any of the material until after it had been developed. Oh, wow. And it was really freeing. It was like totally liberating, and I loved the way it looked. And then, so I think we had just built a lot of trust already when we went into this, and it was a particularly intense shoot just because of the environment. Like normally, I think if you were going to shoot in a place where 200 people are attending a music camp, you would probably have some infrastructure to your film crew, like somebody, keeping everyone on schedule, somebody to answer the questions of the really awesome people who are attending the camp who we would be in the middle of a shot and they don't know, they come over and they'd be like, so tell me about the movie. And I would love to tell them about the movie. That's what I want to do. But then I'm also like, what do I do? You just feel torn in a lot of directions for being my own producer, because it was just me, a cameraman, and a sound person. Anyway, what I'm getting to is that I really trusted Ashley, and I gave her a lot of freedom because I was writing, directing, and kind of producing at the same time on set. So she would obviously show me the shot, and then, but a lot of the time it was like I was leaving the film with her instincts. And she was young. I mean, God, I think she shot this when she was 23 or 24. She'd just gotten out of college and been doing all these experimental films, which is why I had originally hired her for my short, was that her experimental work is just gorgeous and strange, and she uses lighting in really beautiful and intuitive ways. And so anyway, she has a great short online called How She Makes It, and it's still, I think, one of the most beautiful dark movies. The images in that stay with me to this day. So
I think to Josephine's point about trusting the cinematographer, that's something that I sort of learned the hard way on set. I'm actually a photographer, so I would watch her make these shots and I'd be like, the thing is happening, the emotional thing is happening over here and we can't really repeat it. And she'd be like off looking at the tree branch or something. And I'd be like, what the fuck? And then all of a sudden I'd see her like slowly glide in frame. And by the end of it, I trusted it because I had to, because I couldn't control the photography. And it was really kind of freeing for me to learn what that, I guess, release of visual control was like. So I thank you for that experience.
Yeah, it was cool too. Like the last night of shooting was the first time Sarah, or the second to last night was the first time Sarah saw footage. And I remember you watching it and being like, oh my God, it's gorgeous. Wait, we're making a gorgeous movie? Like, you know, like, because I think when you're in front of the camera, you have no idea what's happening back there.
I had no idea. I thought we were just going to make a little funny thing and I was going to try acting and it was going to be getting into dark places. And yeah, I had no idea what I was in for.
But that was a good night too, because we ended up, like Sarah got really excited and we were shooting the last scene the next day, and like the big climactic, you know, drowning / what, I don't know. And then
What was that?
and then but we got really excited, and then we decided to add that whole section of her running up the hill and going to see Isolde and having that sort of like double take where it's like she runs in the room and there's one thing and then she runs back out, and then when she goes back in, you're like, oh, is it, I don't know. Yeah. Was that guy still there? Is he alive?
Another interesting thing I'm just remembering is Josephine she was like, okay, so this is the part where you're clearly emotional, and I'm thinking I should be crying. I was like, but I don't actually totally feel like crying at the moment. So I was like, what do I do? I'll smack myself in the face. And then that makes you like, and then I like, you know, obviously that will bring anybody to a place that they've, you know, all of us have probably been. And I just thought I didn't expect you guys to be shooting that. I thought that was the kind of prelogue for the thing to be shot. So there were a lot of moments like that in the film where Josephine and Ashley made choices to capture what to me seemed like sort of B-roll or like leading information.
I think you actually said hit me. You said hit me to me like 4 times, and I was like, I don't think I can do it. This is way better.
Yeah. Did you end up doing any kind of reshoots after finally seeing the footage, and was there anything that overall, ultimately, that you kind of wished you had gotten as well in terms of additional footage that you just never got around to getting?
No, I mean, I think like I said, finally, I feel like the film's done. But I think the whole opening, the first 7 minutes that takes place here in New York, was new. Like I had been working on the film and had been working on a rough cut all last year, and then it actually got into the Maryland Film Festival, and I was like, dang, you know, I always wanted to shoot that opening. I guess I'll do it. It was after it had been accepted as a 58-minute film, and so. But I had gotten a few feedback from 2 editors that I really trusted. David Barker, who actually edited my next movie, and then Jorge Torres, who's a great editor and director. And Jorge had been like, maybe you should like open the film like in New York before they get to camp. And I was like, what would that be like? You know, and just because also the film goes to such a crazy place at the end, that maybe having a little bit of that crazy up front would prepare the audience that it might go that far.